Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe Pangaro here for Hope is Not a Tactic, the school safety and security show. So the last couple of episodes that I've had out, we talked about some tough topics, hazing, you know, violence, things like that. And I know, having worked in a school for 6 years as director of security, that for many of you, most of you, you did not get into education to worry about your students getting killed in the building, worry about hazing where people are sexually assaulted or injured or traumatized. That's not why you got into teaching. Unfortunately, that is what we have to deal with. So that's the purpose of our show, to cover all the safety and security things we can think of. I'm going to talk now about a topic that is difficult, but we see it all the time now, and that is teacher-student relationships that cross the line. Now, some of the information I have that is based on investigative kind of things that I've done, because I've investigated these as a law enforcement officer and detective, right? And I don't want it to be controversial, but I want us to open our minds and think about the information. All right, so our sponsors, riottint.com, make your school safe, Blue 360 Media, great publishers, and medicalessentialdiagnostics.com. They keep everybody healthy and safe and secure. Reach out to all of them. All right, so what happens? Now, again, I talk about my articles a lot, and if you want these articles, I will send them to you. You send me an email, joe@pangarotraining.com. joe@pangarotraining.com. Hey, Lieutenant, I'd like those articles. All right, so I have the hazing one, and this one here is called Teacher-Student Relationships. And the first word which starts this article is trust. All right? Trust. So we have a trust as a parent, and I'm a parent. I had 4 kids go through school, elementary school, high school, college. And there's a trust there that when I send my kid off to school, I expect my boys and my daughter to be treated fairly, honestly. I expect them to have relationships with their teachers, not loving sexual relationships. I expect them to have trust relationships where they learn from the teacher, where the teacher provides an example of things, where the teacher shows them how to think, how to consider things, how to work through problems. All of these kind of things that we know teachers do. I was amazed when I went to the school district I was in, and I saw how much these teachers and administrators love these children, whether it's the little bitty ones all the way through high school. They love these kids, and they want to do right by them. And I think that's the vast majority. But the reality is, and we all know, we see it on the news all the time now, teacher has a sexual relationship with one of the students. Now, this goes both ways. I remember when I was in school, when I was in high school, it was pretty much a male teacher and a female student. You didn't hear much about female teachers and, interacting sexually with the boys. You just didn't hear about it. Do you hear about it now? We hear about it all the time. It happens all the time. Now, hopefully it never happened in your district, and it never will happen in your district. But the reality is it could. Why? Because we're dealing with human beings. And human beings have lots of feelings and desires and understandings and misunderstandings and all kinds of things. And we have to understand that as we're investigating these things. So how do we do this? What are some things we can do? Well, we have to be aware that it's possible. Now, I know you know all your staff, and you think very highly of your staff. They're very good people. They're decent people. But the kind of things that I found as a detective when I was called to investigate these things was that because people have lives outside of school, because they have relationships outside of school, because they have situations that are good and bad in their personal lives, it can change the way they see the world, the things that they think about, and the things that they do, good, bad, and indifferent. So I know this is hard to talk about. But like I say with lots of things, it has to be about messaging. You have to have policy, and you have to be crystal clear about it. Then you have to train your staff to keep their eyes open for something inappropriate. All right. So how do these kind of relationships start? Well, here's where I think it might be controversial what I'm going to say, but I'm basing this on experience I've had interviewing victims and perpetrators. Is that I think there's a difference. It's all criminal. Every bit of what I'm talking about is criminal, it's wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed to take place, and there should be punishment. Let's be crystal clear on that. But I see a difference between the older teacher, a teacher with more life experience, a teacher in their 30s and 40s and 50s, interacting and developing an inappropriate relationship with a younger person, 14, 15, 16 years old, that kind of a thing, than I do see with a teacher who's maybe right out of teaching school, 22 years old, and gets involved in a relationship with a 16, 17-year-old student, right? Why? Because it depends on the maturity level. It's still wrong. It's still criminal. It still should be prosecuted. I'm just simply saying when we look at it, how do we message for all those groups? I've seen this in real life um, in many different instances, and maybe I'll tell you a story about it. But as we go along, so when I see a 50-year-old male teacher and he's involved with younger females or even males, it doesn't matter. It's just people have different tendencies, what they like, right? That they start to get too close to the student. If you have a policy on no text messages, then you have to make sure that that is absolutely 100% enforced. That if you catch a teacher texting a student for any reason, there has to be a serious punishment and a punishment for the student. Because if we don't do that, if we let it slide, well, it's Mr. Jones and he's the math teacher and he just texted the homework to two kids. Well, then what's the difference when Mrs. Jones texts Bobby Smith about, hey, good luck on your text next week? That's how conversations start. And we all know on the phones, social media, that's where a lot of these relationships begin. In our modern world, these young people, whether they're teachers or whether they're our students, they live on the phone. Everything they do is on the phone. Back in the day when I was looking to go find someone to go out with, we actually went to a location. We went to church, we went to a bar, we went somewhere, and we talked to people. Young people today do everything on the phone. They swipe right, they swipe left, and they use apps to meet each other. Well, texting is exactly that. You're talking to someone, and it can develop into something inappropriate. So your policy has to be rock solid, and you have to make sure you enforce it. Number two, when I say message and teach, you have to train the teachers and the students that this is not acceptable and it will be punished and you will prosecute. You will go to the police and make all these reports because we can't allow this to begin. And if you're serious and you take a hard stand on it and you train everyone what to look for, because I know a lot of teachers might see something and say, that doesn't look right, or you hear something, or you go walk into a classroom and a student and a teacher are there and they're supposed to keep the door open and they didn't. Oh, it's just Mr. Johnson. He's a good guy. Mr. Smith, he's a good guy. She's a good girl, whatever. We can't allow that to happen. Someone has to be notified and investigated. What were you doing in the classroom with Mary Ellen and the door closed? It's supposed to be open, right? That kind of thing. So I just wanted to talk about that. So when I say that the maturity level is different in a 22-year-old, 23-year-old teacher and a 16-year-old student or a 15-year-old student, it's still wrong. But you can see that depending on that maturity of the two people, they can blend that line. And in real life, at 16 years old in the state of New Jersey is the age of consent. So you can have a 16-year-old student dating a 22, 23, 24-year-old person, right? And that's perfectly legal outside of the loco parentis, the school teacher student kind of a thing. That can be misinterpreted because they're very close in age and maybe in maturity and they like the same things and they think they're just being friendly and then it leads to another thing. They have to know that this is wrong. So you message it, message it, message it. The difference there I see, then you have a teacher in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, and they know absolutely there's no mistake. And you don't have anything in common with a 15, 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid in school. You are there to teach, mentor, guide them, not to have a relationship with them outside. That's inappropriate, right? So I have this article. It's got a lot of information in it. I don't want to spend all day talking about it, but it's something that as we start to get into this, we want to understand. We don't want our teachers doing something wrong. We don't want them hurting the students. We don't want the students getting involved in something that can hurt them, right? And we don't want people going to jail. These are our people. We want them to know it's not right. Now, I have gotten information in the past that somebody said, hey, we kind of knew that this person had a strange background, but we kind of overlooked it until it was a problem. You can't do that. So, a couple of the things that I put in here. What is it we can do? You have to have a psychological profile of the teacher and the students involved in the relationship. Got to figure out, who do you have here? Do you have a couple of people who just crossed the line and shouldn't have done what they did, weren't really thinking, they're close in age technically, and they should have done it? Or is it an older person with a younger student? You know, Mrs. Smith, she's 34 years old and she's having relationships with 15, 16-year-old male students or female students. Not right. Number two, the personal history of the students and the teachers are used to identify the root causes of the problem. They have a history of this. Is there a problem? Is there a predator involved? We know that predators, sexual predators, prior people who predate on children, are drawn to places where children are, right? School is all children, right? And I hate to think like that, but we have to. We have to understand some people that are involved in that kind of a thought pattern are going to be drawn to where the kids are. And school is where they are. So we have to be extra cautious when we're picking people and when we're monitoring everyone's behavior. Policies and training of staff or students and relationships and guidelines have got to be followed up on and really put out there nice and loud. Let everybody know. And number four, any staff members ignoring observable boundaries, that happens. You know, you see something, I don't want to get involved. You have to make it a proactive kind of a thing. If you see something that's inappropriate or you think's inappropriate, we have to investigate it. All right. So I think we've covered this to the point that it helps you to understand some of these basic things, like making sure you have that policy in place and you message it nice and loud and prosecute where you have to prosecute. We can't have this going on in schools, and I know you all know that. So remember, hope is not a tactic. We don't hope that this won't happen. We have to be proactive to make sure our school is safe and secure from all dangers for students and staff. All right, we'll talk to you next time.